Oh, Ben Shapiro is probably losing his
This
mind.
morning, Joe Kent quit his job at the National Counterterrorism Center.
I mean, he is literally, Ben Shapiro is the perfect guy to go to whenever shit like this happens, just so you know the wrong opinion. You know what I mean?
And issued a scathing letter designed to undermine President Trump. The letter is deeply, deeply conspiratorial. It states openly that, quote, Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it is...
Guys, the conspiracy is literally something that Lindsey Graham, Marco Rubio, Donald Trump, and virtually every Democratic Party official that has been in these closed-door meetings has openly stated out loud, okay? You can't say it's a conspiracy at that point, dumbass. I'm sorry. Anyone that still thinks that you can consider this to be a conspiratorial, nonsensical position is so delusional and so desperate to defend Israel, so openly and transparently Israel first, that they are having a hard time. They're not talking to a single person that isn't exclusively invested in defending Israel's ambitions, no matter how violent, because everyone has said it. Everyone has said it out loud. People in key positions of power have said it out loud. It is psychotic. Mike Johnson has said it. Like, who is this for is the question.
Clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. Now, that is conspiracy trash. It's also kind of strange since President Trump has...
It's trash. It's conspiracy trash.
...said that it's conspiracy trash. So apparently, Trump is so deeply, deeply enthralled to those strange, powerful American lobbies. We're not going to say it. That he apparently has been so bamboozled by them that he's still under the impression that he's his own man. But here's the thing. President Trump is his own man. He makes his own decisions. And as per our usual arrangement, Trump's critics are cowards who are simply unwilling to acknowledge that Trump is the one making the call. But Joe Kent continued, quote, early in this administration, high-ranking Israeli officials and influential members of the American media deployed a misinformation campaign that wholly undermined your America First platform and sowed pre-war sentiments to encourage a war with Iran. This echo chamber was used to deceive you into believing that Iran posed an imminent threat to the United States and that should you strike now, there was a clear path to a swift victory. This was a lie and is the same tactic the Israelis used to draw us into the disastrous Iraq war that cost our nation the lives of thousands of our best men and women. Again, the idea here seems to be that President Trump is a moron, misled into war by nefarious Israelis and unnamed influential members of the American media. Don't say it. Again, apparently, President Trump has no agency and no thoughts. Kent's letter is replete with this conspiratorial idiocy, including, as we just saw, the idea that it was Israel.
I mean, he kind of makes that an easier argument to launch, don't you think? Like Donald Trump, I mean, it's not like he's seen as like a competent guy. He doesn't carry himself in that way at all. It does kind of lend credence to the theory. He is partially right about MAGA making excuses for Trump and solely blaming Bibi. No, yes, that part is correct. Now, I don't like hitting that line as much because, like, who knows? Maybe MAGA will, well, not MAGA, the voters, but like the leadership might surprise us if enough people are saying, hey, I'm MAGA and why are you doing this? Well, I don't like that you're doing this for Israel. If they... If enough people do that and then the administration sees this as an exit ramp, then I'll take it, right? Because make no mistake, I 100% believe that the American government is absolutely responsible for this. But in the interim, any sort of separation from Israel, no matter how it happens, is good, right?
That forced the original Iraq war.
If that Israel separation comes from enough MAGA people making a fuss because, you know, they operate with a good czar, bad boyars mentality where they think Trump cannot fail. He can only be made to fail by bad advisors or bad people in his orbit. And, you know, part of the bad influences like Israel. If that is going to be the prevailing attitude in the MAGA base, which is the only thing that Trump responds to as far as public pressure goes, you got to take what you can, right?
An idea totally and utterly unsupportable by any evidence, given the fact that the actual prime minister of Israel at the time, Ariel Sharon, opposed the Iraq war. This stuff is brain rot. Now listen, we should all be thankful for Joe Kent's long and honorable military service. We can also be glad that he's leaving, since his ideology is the same as that of Tucker Carlson, the guy who says that the war is disgusting and evil and who has been busy sex.
As opposed to as opposed to a guy who should be saying the war is actually awesome.
Thing with the mullahs. Tucker Carlson calls Kent a personal friend and, quote, the bravest man I know. Frankly, I think that it is a good thing that Kent is not in this position. We cannot have a director of counterterrorism who is somehow advocating preemptive surrender to the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism in the middle of a war.
It's awesome. It took mere minutes. Joe Kent is now officially declared an anti-Semite, and this is by Jake Tapper as well. Don Bacon says, good riddance. Iran has murdered more than 1,000 Americans. Their EFP landmines were the deadliest in Iraq. Anti-Semitism is an evil I detest, and we surely don't want it in our government. Jake Tapper instantly reposted, of course. Yeah, and yes, now Joe Kent, the big anti-Semite. How dare he do this transparent anti-Semitic act?
We just learned, get this, the director of the National Counterterrorism Center, Joe Kent, has just announced he's resigning. CNN national security reporter Zachary Cohn is joining us right now. Zachary, what more can you tell us about this dramatic development?
Yeah, Wolf, this appears to be a significant resignation at the senior-most levels of the Trump intelligence community. This is Joe Kent. He was the director of the National Counterterrorism Center.
And we're talking about Joe Kent. Head of U.S. Counterterrorism Center announces his resignation. And he is in the most like American version of events, most like post-MAGA America version of events. He already did an interview with Tucker Carlson. That interview is coming. And he also released a statement on Twitter. PSL 6 Mogger. I mean, he's not a good guy, by the way. Like, Joe Kent is not a good person. I need you guys to understand. Like, he is literally Trump's U.S. counterterrorism lead, okay? He's not a good person at all. But even a bad person can still recognize the writing on the wall and decide to take a stance against it. So when all these people are like going through the background of Joe Kent and they talk about his anti-Semitism, just remember that they didn't have this kind of issue about Joe Kent when Trump literally hired a white nationalist. Okay? He's a literal Hitler apologist. How are people falling for this stuff? Because it is not pertinent to his decision at the moment. Okay? Like, that's the reason. This is no different than the Candace Owens situation. Just as Ben Shapiro knew Candace Owens was anti-Semitic and did not give a about it as long as she was pro-Israel, it only became an issue when Candace Owens became anti-Israel. And the same goes for Joe Kent. Do you understand? I can't comprehend how I just don't understand how people have a hard time understanding this. Like, it is always surprising when people still fall for this.
He appearing to post on X a resignation letter that he submitted citing misgivings over the Trump administration's decision to launch its war with Iran. Now, Kent in this letter writes in part, quote, as a veteran who deployed to combat 11 times and as a Gold Star husband who lost my beloved wife Shannon in a war manufactured by Israel, I cannot support sending the next generation off to fight and die in a war that serves no benefit to the American people, nor justifies the cost of American lives. Now, Kent, in his apparent post on X, does also seem to suggest that there was no imminent threat that it has been used and cited by the Trump administration as justification.
So is this significant? Yes, it really up. This is genuinely a huge deal, and it certainly has rattled the administration a little bit too. A high-profile administration figure like this quitting their job and releasing the reasons as to why they quit their job, and directly betraying the administration's half-hearted propaganda on why we have to wage war with Iran is huge. It's a huge deal.
Launching this war against Iran. He says that essentially the administration manufactured this idea of an imminent threat, and that is part of the reason why he is deciding to resign from his post today.
Let me read a little bit from this letter that he wrote to President Trump. This is Joe.
Does anyone have the... Oh, yeah, here it is. Wait. No, not this. Where is Joe Kent's actual letter? Hold on. He said, 9 hours ago, after much reflection, I've decided to resign from my position as director of the National Counterterrorism Center, effective today. Okay? Yeah. And by the way, this is the highest ranking official that left the administration as opposed to the Biden admin, where there were lower ranking officials that had left the admin in response to our unlimited loyalty to Israel, as Israel was committing a genocide, but nowhere near to this degree. Okay? Yeah, this guy's been directly involved in and responsible for overseeing some of the worst covert war crimes the U.S. has committed in the Middle East in the global war on terror. And apparently this Iran war was too much for him, too. His political views are irrelevant in the circumstances. Someone with his creds resigning is unthinkable. Okay? It just doesn't happen. Like retired Green Beret combat veteran who is you know, who has a very, I mean, this is a very well-credentialed psychopath, okay? After a lifetime of service at the Imperial Death Machine, including running kill squads for the CIA Special Activities Center and defending Eddie Gallagher, Joe Kent suddenly decides his decades of sanctioned murder was on behalf of Israel bad, rather than the U.S. good. Whether it's because he wants to preserve his, whether he wants to basically preserve his legacy in some weird twisted way, or whether he just sees the writing on the wall, it doesn't matter. The impact is still the same. Here's what he said. With the Director of National Intelligence, National Counterterrorism Center letterhead, okay, Joseph Kent, the Director of the National Counterterrorism Center, okay, the guy responsible for counterterrorism in the United States of America. President Trump, after much reflection, I have decided to resign from my position as the Director of the National Counterterrorism Center effective today. I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. I support the values and the foreign policies that you campaigned on in 2016, 2020, and 2024, which you enacted in your first term. Until June of 2025, you understood that the wars in the Middle East were a trap that robbed America of the precious lives of our patriots, that depleted the wealth and prosperity of our nation. In your first administration, you understood better than any modern president how to decisively apply military power without getting us drawn into never-ending wars. You demonstrated this by killing Qasem Soleimani and by defeating ISIS, which, ironically enough, the Qasem Soleimani thing was also something that Israel wanted to do, which is why it's crazy that he's literally glazing that decision. So it seems like he has some appetite for America maneuvering in a way that benefits Israel's ambitions in the region. It's just, you know, this is a bridge too far for him. Early in this administration, high-ranking Israeli officials and influential members of the American media deployed a misinformation campaign that wholly undermined your America First platform and sowed pro-war sentiments to encourage a war in Iran. This echo chamber was used to deceive you into believing that Iran posed an imminent threat to the United States and that you should strike now. There was a clear path to a swift victory. This is all 100% correct, by the way. Everything that this Hitlerite, psychopathic Green Beret is saying is 100% correct. Literally no notes, except for the Qasem Soleimani shit, obviously, because he's a idiot for that. But no notes. 100% correct. Okay, that is exactly what happened. It's not, you don't even need insider knowledge, which he very clearly has, right? But like what he is saying here is just another confirmation of the things that Lindsey Graham has said, the things that Marco Rubio has said, the things that Donald Trump has said. Okay? This was a lie and is the same tactic the Israelis used to draw us into the disastrous Iraq war, which, by the way, again, a little bit of copium there, okay? At that point, the Iraq war was absolutely a belligerent decision by the American government that, well, I wouldn't even say belligerent decision. It was a long-standing position of many financial interests in Iraq that materialized with a Dick Cheney leadership. But, you know, Israel goading America into going to war with Iraq certainly was beneficial in whipping up the votes for it. But Israel wasn't the singular reason why we went to Iraq, just so you understand. Okay? I hope you understand. There's a difference between America's decisions in Iraq and the American decisions with Iran. Okay? This was a lie and is the same tactic Israel uses to draw us in the war with Iraq. And cost our nation the lives of thousands of our best men and women. We cannot make this mistake again. Oh my God, this is literally, I'm just realizing this is like stabbed in the back. Except this time there is like a real, a real reason for why. Like there's a legitimate reason as to why you can say this about Iran. With Iraq, not as much, but it doesn't matter. We're reflecting on the failed military campaign of Iraq and saying, oh, we did it because the Jews and they stabbed us in the back. It's kind of crazy. This guy literally participated in that, by the way. As a veteran who deployed to combat 11 times and as a Gold Star husband who lost my beloved wife Shannon in a war manufactured by Israel, I cannot support sending the next generation off to fight and die in a war that serves no benefit to the American people nor justifies the cost of American lives. I pray that you will reflect upon what we are doing in Iran and who we are doing it for. The time for bold action is now. You can reverse course and chart a new path for our nation, or you can allow us to slip further towards decline and chaos. You hold the cards. It was an honor to serve in your administration and to serve our great nation. Yeah, I mean, he is demonic. Trump is the well-meaning Kaiser who was tricked by the perfidious international capital and insert institution with alleged Jewish control. I mean, he's not a well-meaning Kaiser at all, obviously. Like I see the analog here, right? He's a psychopath himself. But one can also have the ambition and still be totally convinced by the Israeli state as he has, right? That is the reality. Well, I guess the Kaiser wasn't either. It's true. But like both of these things are correct. Trump is dumb enough to think that, you know, this would go well for him. Hasan abi seni ailen yanlışlıkla mı yapmış? Evet. Do I think that this is totally self-serving from Joe Kent's perspective? Possibly. Does it matter? Absolutely not. Okay. Chatter said Jewish control. Come on, bro. No, he's making an analog to stabbed in the back. That's what he's saying. He's saying this is just like Nazi Germany. Hello. Do you not understand? It's an analogy. But this time, instead of saying insert institution with alleged Jewish control, instead of just directly saying it was the Jews, he's saying the modern version of the same exact myth. the modern version of the same exact myth is being redeployed right now. Okay. Kent, America First for Congress. Joe Kent's statement on support for Israel and opposition to anti-Semitism. Israel, a mutually beneficial ally and a close friend. I am intimately familiar with the help that Israel has provided the United States during my military service in the Middle East. My fellow soldiers and I often relied on intelligence provided by the IDF and their intelligence agencies to help accomplish our mission and keep us alive. The United States and Israel share common enemies in the Middle East, from terrorist groups like Hamas and Hezbollah to the totalitarian government of Iran. Building close economic, diplomatic, and military relations in the United States' best interests and something I will advocate for as a member of Congress. Again, it doesn't matter what he said in the past about Jews or whatever, right? What he cares about, and he has also defended Israel again. Marie voted against supporting Israel because the funds would be taken from Biden's IRS. Marie's priority is the IRS tracking your Venmo transactions, not defending Israel and recovering American hostages. She also voted to leave our troops under fire by Iran and Iraq and Syria. Notice how all of a sudden everyone's like, wow, you're a real anti-Semite, huh? This is really up how anti-Semitic you are. He was like straight up a groiper, but it doesn't fucking matter because when he was a straight up groiper, it didn't even matter. Also in 2022, Kent was drawn into a dispute with the groipers around the Israel question as well as white identity politics, which back then was still controversial in the mainstream right. He disavowed Fuentes while also appearing on a groiper adjacent stream to debate them, which was an unusual step for an aspiring politician, even in MAGA hard right, and signaled that groiper politics were beginning their inexorable creep into conservative respectability. That was one midterm ago. In just 4 years, enough space has opened up on the fascist right for Joe Kent to flip on Israel in the groiper's direction and for Nick Fuentes to be courted by Tucker Carlson. Yeah, this was his Israel position paper shared with AIPAC during a failed 2022 House bid. Kent said he was intimately familiar with the help that Israel had provided the United States, and two countries share common enemies in the Middle East and the totalitarian government of Iran. Right? By the way, Jewish Insider and AIPAC, like all of these institutions just straight up are information sharing all the time. I'm sorry, it's very hard to see this as anything but like a foreign espionage operation. Like it's crazy. Oh, all of a sudden the AIPAC, the AIPAC position papers materialize out of thin air the moment that Joe Kent comes out and says this is a war we're waging at the behest of Israel and it's unacceptable. I mean, he just took the position that the half-hog libertarians have been on for months. Maybe he watches Tim Dillon. No, this is an indefensible position. America has openly stated that they're waging war on Iran at the behest of Israel. It is an indefensible position. Anyone with 3.5 working brain cells can recognize that it's an indefensible position. If you want, whether you want to like preserve American military superiority because things are also not going well on the military campaign side, or whether because you have ambitions of higher office later down the line, you recognize that this is completely untenable. It's an indefensible position. So you're just pulling the ripcord out as quickly as possible. Anyone that actually turns around and talks about Joe Kent being a asshole for this or being anti-Semitic for this is also not reading the goddamn room or a psychopathic Israel first right on cue. There's also this scoop from John Hudson that I think is interesting. Joe Kent and Tulsi Gabbard met with Vice President J.D. Vance at the White House on Monday. Per sources, during the meeting, Kent presented his resignation letter to the vice president.
Joseph Kent, he works for the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. But he writes this, he says, I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby.
Oh no, Jake is mad. Jake is mad.
I support the values and the foreign policies that you campaigned on in 2016, 2020, 2024, which you enacted in your first.
Hey, Thievlock, I can't give you my take on Polymark and specifically troll bets being made like will Clavicula become the next Iranian supreme leader? I'm a Danish student researching how prediction markets and influencers affect young people. Do you think this is the appropriate time for me to give you my perspective? I feel like there's issues that are more pertinent than that, you know? Please stop spamming in the chat.
Term. Until June of 2025, you understood that the wars in the Middle East were a trap that robbed America of the precious lives of our patriots and depleted the wealth and prosperity of our nation. And he added this. In your first administration, you understood better than any modern president how to decisively apply military power without getting us drawn into never-ending wars. You demonstrated this by killing Qasem Soleimani and by defeating ISIS. He goes on and says more, Sabrina, but those are powerful words.
I think what's also important here is this is an appointee that was not someone that you could consider not aligned with the president. I mean, this is someone that espoused the MAGA base views and was appointed by, of course, Tulsi Gabbard. And so the fact that he has issued a very public resignation and the fact that he's also said that Iran did not pose an imminent threat to the United States.
Oh my God. Oh my God, it's Sabrina Singh. God, mainstream media is so toasted, dude. Who's Sabrina Singh? A out and about war criminal, okay? A defender of unlimited child murder, a genocidaire of the highest order, one of the people in the Biden Pentagon at the time when Israel was conducting its genocide. She was one of the spokespersons for the American Defense Brigade of Israel's genocide. And now, of course, she has a cushy job at CNN as a political and global affairs commentator. Yeah, she also worked with Fat Sagar at the newer think tank that also kept doing PR for Israel, including the Gaza Holocaust Fund that America and Israel set up together. They went over to that private PR firm to do PR for the Gaza Holocaust Fund, and her and Fat Sagar, I forget his name, and yeah, and now I guess she got a job at CNN.
A case that was made by.
It's kind of crazy. Like, dude, this is the type of like, look, no anti-Semitism, right? Like, we're talking about Israel, we're not talking about Jews. Okay, I just want to stress this real quick. But like, Wolf Blitzer did PR for AIPAC, and he's sitting across from Sabrina Singh, who also did PR for another like Israeli organization and also did PR for Israel's genocide. Like, is there a person that has a different point of view here? Like, do we have anybody that can speak on these panels that's like, hey, this is kind of weird?
Demonstrated this by killing Qasem Soleimani and by defeating ISIS. He goes on and says more, Sabrina, but those are powerful words.
I think what's also important here is this is an appointee that was not someone that you could base views. Issued a very public resignation. And the fact that he's also said that Iran did not pose an imminent threat to the United States, a case that was made by Donald Trump multiple times and many other officials in this administration, including the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, saying that Iran posed an immediate threat to the United States. And he's someone that clearly had access to intelligence matters, saying that they did not. I think you could potentially see other resignations from this administration, people deep within the MAGA base that do not support this war of choice. And frankly, it is a war of choice. It is something that the president chose to do. And he has said, you know, kind of on his own conscience, that he decided to initiate this war as well.
Yeah, he even said that he got Israel on board.
Yes.
But in this letter, Joe Kent says he believes that this is.
Wait, I'm sorry. So now we believe Donald Trump at CNN? That's awesome. No. When Donald Trump first said we did this for Israel, but then he the next day said, no, actually, I got Israel on board. So we're choosing to believe the I got Israel on board statement that literally goes against the overwhelming majority of people on the Democratic Party side and on the Republican Party side that has actively said this war is being waged at the behest of Israel. That's awesome.
Is started because of pressure from Israel and its American lobby. I'm wondering, General, what you think about the last one of the last lines here. He says, you can reverse course and chart a new path for our nation, or you can allow us to slip further toward decline and chaos. You hold the cards. I'm wondering at this point, several weeks into this war, you have Iran saying that the Strait of Hormuz will never go back to the conditions where it was before. How do you chart a new course?
He needs to cut his losses, that being President Trump. He needs to cut his losses and shut this down as quick as he possibly can. That would be the best thing at this solution. You know, I'm not sure if he's got the capability, the wherewithal to actually do that politically. But I mean, this is not going well, and it's going to get worse. And bully for Mr. Joe Kent for having the political courage to stand up for what he believes. You know, this is a guy that's a big-time MAGA supporter, has always been, very much like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who you had on your show yesterday. Mm-hmm. I mean, these are significant resignations from the MAGA world, and people need to take note. And I hope that this leads to the resignation of other members of the administration, because he is absolutely spot on target. This is not in the best interest of the United States to continue this war, and President Trump needs to shut it down as quickly as he possibly can.
Let me read another sentence or two from his resignation letter.
We got general anti-Semitism over here. Hold on. Excuse me, sir. I didn't know you got your rank at Anti-Semitism University. Okay, what do you mean? We got to nip this shit in the bud. We got to stop this and take the first exit ramp. Hold on now. Not allowed.
As a veteran who deployed to combat 11 times, and as a Gold Star husband who lost my beloved wife Shannon in a war manufactured by Israel, I cannot support sending the next generation off to fight and die in a war that serves no benefit to the American people nor justifies the cost of American lives.
Yeah. No, I mean, we've already seen 13 American service members die in this war. Over 200 have been injured, and their conditions have ranged from very serious to some have been returned to duty. But I think, you know, we've heard Pete Hegseth say this time and again that more Americans could lose their lives. And I think this letter.
What is this? What? Up to 80,000 Iranians have died protesting a regime, but 3 weeks of joint U.S.-Israeli attacks have failed to deliver the freedom for which they sacrificed their lives. 80,000? 80,000? Iran killed 80. Fuck it, dude. Iran killed 10 million. Okay? Iran killed 20 million. Iran killed 1 billion Iranians. Iran killed 7 billion Iranians in a matter of 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. 80,000? I'm stupid. How important was this guy for the administration? I mean, he was the director of the National Counterterrorism Council, the Counterterrorism Center. Like, he is the head of counterterrorism for the American government, an incredibly high-ranking individual in the admin.
Makes it very clear, is that worth it? Is that worth the cost? And this is someone that's obviously gone to war on behalf of our country and seen the cost that it takes, not just on the people who are putting their lives on the line, but
like, here's the thing. During the Biden administration, no such high-ranking official ever quit throughout the genocide. Okay? There were people that quit in the Biden admin as well, if you recall, right? But they were never at this level. They were never at this level. When Biden was allowing Israel to do the Holocaust on the Palestinian population with unlimited support, there was never a person at this level that quit in that process. All the people that quit were in much lower ranking positions in the admin.
On the country. And so I think it is really important that not only is he putting this out today, but this is someone that is a deep figure within the MAGA base and someone that is aligned with the president and is breaking very publicly with him.
And it's personal for him, as you noted, Wolf, that his wife was killed in Syria in 2019 by an ISIS bomber. I just want to go back to you, General. Clearly, you don't agree with this war. But at the same time, Israel is saying that it has taken out more top Iranian officials, including one who has been overseeing a lot of what Iran has been doing in its counterattacks. And I just wonder if you see any progress, any benefit so far from this war in terms of safety toward the United States because of some of the people who have been taken out.
First of all, I commend the military performance thus far in the war. I mean, it's been superb. And look, no one's shedding any tears.
Bro, he's clearly an anti-Semite and his butt hurt. We aren't doing this to Mexico or Cuba. I mean, I don't think he would give a fuck if we're doing this to Mexico or Cuba. But I suspect that the motivating principle here is not anti-Semitism. Self-preservation, absolutely. But I don't think anything that he is saying is with the exception of the, Israel goaded us into going to war with Iraq. I mean, Israel did absolutely push for the Iraq war. Anyone that says that's not the case is a liar. But like the calculation was not like, it's not even comparable with respect to the Iraq war versus the Iran war. You cannot compare these two things as far as like how much of a factor Israel was. Okay. In Iraq, Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu literally came to Congress and said, oh, this is going to be great. It's awesome. Right? Sure. Did that help convince some people? I'm sure it did. But Iraq was America in the driver's seat. Okay. The United States of America, for reasons outside of what might be beneficial for Israel, wanted to go to Iraq. Okay. Iran, on the other hand, has a lot more to do with Israel. That is such an insane, disgusting take. What's insane, disgusting take? You can definitely compare them. Bibi was a main influence in the Iran war. He was a supporting influence in the Iraq war. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Benjamin Netanyahu, at the time, the idea that Joe Kent is anti-Semitic. Wait, what? I mean, he was like Groyper affiliated for years before he decided to push back against the Groyper shit. So I don't, it wouldn't surprise me if, I think most of these guys are anti-Semitic. Who gives a shit? This has nothing to do with this calculation. Like, what? Hello? Guys, I need you to wake the up, okay? A lot of people in this administration are anti-Semitic. They're also pro-Israel, and that's what matters, okay? Candace Owens was anti-Semitic. Candace Owens was anti-Semitic when Ben Shapiro hired Candace Owens. But Candace Owens back then was pro-Israel. It was only after Candace Owens became anti-Semitic and anti-Israel that Ben Shapiro said, you're fired. Okay, that's it.
For the Khomeini's demise and a new Ayatollah and the aggressive nature that they have had towards in the region and been a threat in the region. I mean, I'm all for doing something about the Iranians, but we were not provoked. And the problem here is that we're in the middle of a long war, at least a long war for them. I mean, I remember what Henry Kissinger said about Vietnam. He said that the Americans will lose by not winning, and the Vietnamese will win by not losing. The Iranians just want to sustain themselves, stay in power as long as they possibly can, continue to harass the United States, like attacking Baghdad and the embassy there and whatnot, and stay alive long enough so that they can claim victory.
I don't know if I agree with this. Milikowski played a central role in the second genocide against Iraq. I honestly don't know if the U.S. invades if Israel doesn't want it. Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11, and we all know it was a serious thorn in Israel's side after Saddam went rogue. You are nutty mode, brother. Come on. They literally had the oil fields mapped out in 1995, dude. What are you talking about? No, I do not agree with that at all. Did they utilize 9/11 to put the crosshairs on Iraq? And did Israel's goals here in taking out Saddam also sweeten the deal? Certainly. But there is no such materialist calculation that you can make with Iran as it stands currently. That's why I'm saying this is different. That's why I'm saying the calculation now is different. Do you understand?
And that's what they will do if they do this long enough.
Let's go actually to the White House, where we're going to find our Kevin Liptak, who's been tracking any responses coming from the administration. What's the latest, Kevin?
Yeah, nothing official yet from the president, although we are expecting to see him any moment now in the Oval Office with the Taoiseach of Ireland. He's here for St. Patrick's Day. But you do hear, officials who are within the Trump orbit beginning to sound off on this. One former White House official described Joe Kent as an egomaniac, someone who is resigning this position in quite a high-profile fashion. And I think that is probably along the lines of what we will hear from the president if and when he decides to respond to this. But I do think it will be difficult for him to entirely dismiss this resignation as someone, with Trump derangement syndrome, as someone who is a Trump enemy, as he does so often, just because Joe Kent has so often aligned himself with the president. He is of the MAGA wing of the party. That's how he ran as a candidate for Congress 2 times in Washington state, and it is why he was selected for this position in the first place. His confirmation was not an easy one by any means. He was, very narrowly confirmed by the Senate, and all of these questions about conspiracies around the 2020 election, about potential ties to white nationalists, all arose in his confirmation hearings. And for all of those reasons, I think it will be difficult for the president to sort of entirely distance himself from this individual who is now coming out very publicly decrying some of the perceived rationale for the war in Iran. And I do think it will also put in a very difficult position Joe Kent's boss, the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, who has espoused, in previous lives, the very same positions about questioning the adventurism of previous iterations of the Republican Party, questioning nation-building pursuits. She, too, was a veteran, just like Joe Kent, and so putting her, I think, in a difficult position. But certainly we expect to hear from the president very soon, and hopefully he will be asked about all of this.
We'll see what he says. All right, Kevin Liptak, thank you very, very much. I want to bring in CNN K-File senior editor Andrew Kaczynski, who's joining us on the phone. Andrew, I know you had previously reported that Joe Kent gave a previously unreported interview back in 2022 to Grayson Arnold, a Nazi sympathizer and white nationalist. A spokesperson for Kent, who was then running for Congress at the time, said, and I'm quoting him now, Joe Kent had no idea who that individual was when he encountered him on the street, and Joe Kent has repeatedly condemned the statements that the individual is accused of making, end quote. Andrew, what more can you tell us about Kent's past?
Well, look, Joe Kent's resignation is dramatic, but it's really not particularly surprising if you look at his record. He's a former Green Beret. He did numerous tours overseas. His first wife, Shannon, was a military member who was killed overseas in a suicide bombing in Syria that targeted U.S. troops. What's remarkable here, too, is that he entered politics in 2021 to primary a Republican who had actually voted to impeach Trump. He had 2 failed bids for Congress. And when he entered politics, he specifically said it was in part because he witnessed, and this is a direct quote from one of his videos launching his campaign, the failures of the government establishment in keeping us at war in the Middle East, watching officials, as he said, quote, lie about regime change wars. And during that campaign, both campaigns, he railed against the military-industrial complex. He railed against endless wars. In one of the interviews he gave, he literally said, "Let's not start a new war with Iran." That was a 2021 interview. At the same time, as you mentioned, he has been a polarizing figure during his congressional run. He did face repeated scrutiny over contacts with far-right figures and extremist figures, which he later disavowed. And of course, he works for Tulsi Gabbard, who before joining the administration had a long history of opposing war with Iran. And not that long ago, just 5-6 years ago, she was literally selling, as she ran for Congress, merchandise that said no war with Iran on her campaign website. So this also puts a lot of questions at her, as has been mentioned here. But ultimately, I do think that his resignation here reflects his longstanding opposition to American intervention abroad.